Hi, my name is Sam Vargas. I am a senior film major, and this is my final for Disasters in Hollywood. And today we're going to be looking at a movie from 2018 called Hurricane Heist. It depicts the events of a heist during the midst of a Category 5 hurricane that is barreling through the southern states. The movie just picks up, it's full of actions and stuff, but it just quickly shows you to never underestimate the powers of a Category 5 hurricane. So I'll be looking at some of the action scenes and some of like the disaster scenes from the film to see how accurate they got this disaster. So let's start. Okay, so the hurricane here, this is the very beginning of the movie. The hurricane portrayed here is Hurricane Andrew, a Category 5 hurricane that swept through the coast of Alabama with wind speeds of 175 miles per hour. It cost the life of 60 people along with $23 billion in property. Andrew was one of the 4 hurricanes that made it in inland United States as a Category 5. It wasn't just in the United States that caused a lot of damage. Andrew also swept through the Bahamas, and it touched some of the islands in the Caribbean when it was still like categories, when it was still just a depression storm and into a Category 5. Now, according to National Weather Service, once a hurricane reaches wind speeds of over 100 miles per hour, it becomes a massive destructive force. We're talking about sweeping through fields, sweeping like houses that are not tied down to the ground, just like rip off the ground and like start barreling through the air. Cars, like small enough cars, can be picked up but not like severely thrown off course. People can be like knocked off their feet, signs can go anywhere, but like the 170 miles per hour is a really powerful wind force. And so the house here like gets torn off the ground, meaning like the house wasn't really like solid, like it wasn't like on the ground, like it was just a house on the surface of the floor, no basement or anything. So it was quickly just swept over. Plus it was made of entirely out of wood. So it was no match against a hurricane that strong. All right, so we're going to stop right there for a second. We see here that one of the bad guys shoots a flare at the roof of this mall, right, which is in glass. And the hurricane outside is already still Category 5, like wind speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. They shoot up in the air and it creates this vacuum effect, like anybody that was inside gets shoot up into the sky and gets thrown around in the air. So this is another Category 5 hurricane hitting the coast of the city of Louisiana. So for cinematic purpose, let's just say that this hurricane here is stronger than the strongest hurricane recorded in history, which is Hurricane Patricia, which was a massive Category 5 hurricane that ravaged through the Gulf in 2005 with wind speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. It is possible for winds to pick up humans if they are strong enough. Anything above 50 miles per hour can just knock you on your feet and like pick up people, but not like throw them up into the atmosphere kind of thing. Like, but 200 miles per hour, we're talking like these people would get sucked up into the air, but like just push off to the ground. Not like we never see them again kind of situation. The thing that gets me in this part of the video is when the people are running through the building, like on top of the roof, and they jump off. The winds are still pretty strong because you see debris going behind them, which means that the wind speed can be like over 100 miles per hour. So, and if it's over 100 miles per hour, then those people should be feeling the wind, like it should be picking them up or at least pushing them. And even if they jump, like they should be pushed to the side or like pushed down. The point is, they shouldn't be able to run so easily in such strong winds, especially when they're getting hit by debris. So that part is not as realistic as it sounds. So let's stop here for a second. We established that winds above 50 miles per hour can pick up a person, right? So how strong does a wind have to be? How strong does the wind have to be for it to be able to pick up a semi-truck filled with money? All right. So the average semi-truck weighs about 80,000 pounds. So that's not including the money though. So it would take anything, and it also would take anything about like over 140 miles per hour for wind to pick up a car. We're talking about an average of 8,000 pound cars, like sedans and like small size cars. So assuming that the hurricane is still at its peak 200 miles per hour, would it still be able to pick up a semi-truck? Not really. According to meteorologists, winds between 175 miles per hour and 200 miles per hour will not do massive destruction against a semi-truck. The worst that it can do at 200 miles per hour, it would be just tipping it over, not even picking it up. The truck is simply way too heavy. It would take an unnatural amount of force to be able to pick it up into the air like it did in the scene, and to be able to toss it back to the ground and then pick it up once again. So it's just impossible. Not to mention that in a hurricane, winds don't last that long. So it would be a gust of 200 miles per hour wind, knock the truck over, and it would return back to like just a standard like 100 miles per hour wind. So it's pretty near impossible for a hurricane to be able to pick up a semi-truck, just because it's just, hurricanes are not that strong. Not as strong as this film depicts it to be. Okay, we've reached the last scene, and here we see the good guys escaping on the last truck. They outrun the hurricane. So, can you outrun a hurricane? Can a hurricane be that fast? So, let's talk about science right now. Hurricanes, once they reach over land, they slow down. So when they're in water, when they're starting to form, they go somewhere between 30 to 40 miles per hour over the ocean once they're building up strength. Once they reach inland, they start losing that strength. And so they reduce their speed to like 12 miles per hour over land. And so that being said, the truck also in the film is going at top speed just because they're trying to outrun this hurricane. So somewhere between 80 to 100 miles per hour. The hurricane just seems like it's going way too fast for this film to be even possible. But it's like for a few reasons besides like the hurricane speed over land. First, the hurricane has lost strength by now. Looking back at Hurricane Andrew, mentioned before in the film, Hurricane had already reached a Category 3 by the time it reached Louisiana. And it didn't take long before it started diminishing once it reached more upland. So for the hurricane to remain this strong, still a Category 5 with 200 miles per hour wind, to remain this strong after already touched land, that's just not possible because the hurricanes draw energy from the water, from the warm water. They draw the heat from the water and they draw it, and that gives them strength. Once they reach over land, there's nothing they can feed off of. So they start losing power and they start diminishing. The issue is hurricanes, when they reach top wind speeds, like Hurricane Andrew's top wind speed was 175 miles per hour, but it only lasted for 1 minute. Hurricanes don't keep that strength for very long, so the worst of the wind, the worst wind possible, it doesn't even last that long. So the fact that they're running from a hurricane that is still doing 200 miles per hour wind is really hard to believe, especially because this action scene is a lot longer, like 10 to 15 minutes long. And for the hurricane to be able to pick up that much speed and maintain it is just naturally impossible. I mean, this film did a really terrible job at depicting what a hurricane is. There's one thing that they got right, and that's how devastating a hurricane is. Hurricanes are responsible for a lot of the deaths in America. Plus, they create billions of dollars worth of damage. So there's no lie that hurricanes are truly devastating, and it's not something you want to be caught in the middle of. So this film caught that because we saw massive winds, we saw tsunamis, and we saw debris flying everywhere. Like people die in these things. So that's true. What the film depicted here, that is true. But the force that they were trying to recreate here with wind speeds that carried out for hours, that is not true. So based on hurricanes that we have learned in the past, hurricanes we have studied, how I would have done this movie a lot better is that I would have caught this heist somewhere differently. I would have done this like the guys were doing a heist on a cargo boat, like there's a lot of money in there or there's something precious that they want to steal there, and I would have made that they would be floating off to the cargo boat, steal stuff, and they would try to like escape it, but they get caught by a hurricane that is making its way over to inland. Hurricanes build strength from the ocean. We know that because warm water is what gives the hurricanes energy. So there's nothing worse than getting caught in a hurricane when it's still building strength, because winds would just get worse and the situation just gets much worse. So I would do a depiction of them getting into the cargo ship and then the hurricane hits them. It's not so bad, but the situation gets a lot worse with wind and waves hitting you. Because most boats will not stand a chance against a hurricane in the middle of the water. We've seen perfect storm. It's just not impossible. So I would do a heist in the water rather than inland because it's a lot more believable to see how devastating it is to do a hurricane in the water. And it's actually a lot more, it will do a more accurate depiction of a hurricane. I would not recommend this movie if you want to study, like if you want to see the real effects of a hurricane. I would not recommend this movie. I would recommend something like Perfect Storm just because that is a little bit more realistic than this. Actually, it's a lot more realistic than this. This movie's action is just not that good. The comedy's not that good. I would just not recommend this movie. But besides the movie, you should not take hurricanes like as a joke. Hurricanes are a pretty serious natural disaster. And all these movies do catch something that is true, and that is that hurricanes are a devastating force. You don't want to be caught in the middle of that. So take hurricanes seriously and just play it safe.